All right, everybody, we are recording now. This is the Admin Study Group, October 30th, and it is doing a little bit of snow flurries out here in Waukee anyway. So if you're not seeing it out your window, you probably will soon. Our topic today is on data management. We have data loads and transfers, data tools and use cases, and then data validation. And I believe I've got the first topic, and then we've got Lois and Tanner as our other two. So hopefully, I think we've got everybody on the call. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into data loads and transfers. And I forgot to bring up my Salesforce system, but so data loads, transfers. Really what I've got here is mostly what do we want to do before we start to import or make updates to our data. And there's kind of a three-step process that is recommended. And so I'm going to go through those three steps, and then we'll also look at some ways that we can keep our data clean. And then I'm just going to do a variety of different questions that we'll have open for discussion and to kind of hopefully cover this topic reasonably well. Okay, so first thing before you're importing data is to always clean up your data. And here what they're talking about is making sure that your data in Salesforce is as accurate as can be. So they kind of break these into, breaking them into why do we do it versus how do we go about doing it. So we want to do it for accuracy because if our data is not accurate, people aren't going to trust it, so we lose credibility. If we lose credibility, we lose usability and we lose adoption. So pretty big reasons to try to make sure our data is valid. And obviously, when we talk from an import standpoint, we don't want to import a bunch of data that's not going to aid us in those objectives. So how do we go about doing that? The recommendations there are to delete duplicate records if you can. So these are just house cleaning type things. Correct spelling and punctuation errors, enforce naming conventions, and fill in any incomplete data. Step number two is to prepare the import file itself. So the first step was things you could do on the Salesforce side. This one is the actual file that you're going to import. And to me, the how almost needs to be talked about before the why on this one. But how we do this with our import file is it's always a good idea to match your field names, especially if you've got a large import with lots of columns. If you do that, it will simplify your data mapping because the mapping will just happen automatically. It'll match off of your field name in Salesforce to the column name in your CSV file. You'll minimize your errors if you clean up your data prior to loading it. So things there would be like making sure that your pick list values in the file you're importing match with the pick list values that are in Salesforce. Any data format issues, so think of like email addresses is one that I frequently run into when I'm doing imports that it's not a valid email format. Are all the dates formatted like a date field? So those are things that when you're loading the data, if you don't take the time to clean them up prior to the load, they will error out for you. Addresses is another one there that's really almost always when I get a file to load, address line 1 and address line 2 are two separate columns. So I concatenate those together as a single column. Sometimes you have the same issue with first and last name. Sometimes you have to break those apart into separate columns as well. So those are the types of things that they're looking at here in this particular step. And then preventing any data cleanup. Certainly if you get that data clean before you load it, you'll have less issues that you'll have to come back and work on later. So a couple things in that one, and I'm just kind of jumping around here on the how side. So if you've got required fields on the object that you're loading data into, then make sure you've got a column for that as well on your file that you're importing. Consider whether or not you need to have a record owner on that file, because if you don't, it's going to make you the owner of all of the records that are imported. If you have parent records, you'll need IDs to resolve to the parent.
Record owner, Terry, would need to be the Salesforce ID of the record owner?
Yep, it'd be the record ID for the user. Yep. And if you've got record types on the objects, that's another one that is often forgotten about when we're doing an import. They did make reference to remember that 15-digit IDs are case sensitive. I do have that right. Case sensitive, and the 18-digit ID is case insensitive. So I could see something like that potentially being asked on a quiz. So make sure you understand that difference between those different lengths on your IDs. And then it's always best practice to load a small sample file first. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It depends on how confident I am in what I'm doing. And then, of course, the file does have to be saved as a CSV file for importing. And this is in reference to the Salesforce provided methods of importing data. So just keep that in mind. The next presentation, I think, we'll talk about those tools specifically. But there are certainly tools out there that you can use that do not have to be a CSV file. And step number 3 is to prepare Salesforce. So here, if you're needing to import any new fields, you need to make sure that you've got those fields added into Salesforce. If you're using an external ID, then you'll want to create that text file, mark those as an external ID. An external ID is used when you are, it's basically a key for another system in your org. So Salesforce may not be the system of record, for example, for certain data that you load into Salesforce, but you want to keep that other system's unique identifier for those records. That's when you'd use an external ID. Any pick list values that need adjusted, you'd want to make those changes as well. And then recommended, but I know we don't often always do this for sometimes valid reasons, but it will make a big difference in the performance of a really large load if you turn off workflow rules, process builders, and triggers. Again, sometimes a best practice is to set up your data that you're loading to already include or handle what those workflow rules or those processes are going to do so that you can turn those things off, especially if you're dealing with a really large file. If you're loading just 100, 200, or even a couple thousand records, there's no rule that says you have to do this. It's just it will be a slower load. If you're doing 1 million+ records, I almost guarantee you're going to want to do this because performance will be significant. And then it's also considered best practice to back up and export your data prior to doing a load. It just gives you the ability to recover if you need to. Any questions on those 3 steps?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. Recently, we were loading in some data for users, and regarding pick lists, not just adjusting the values, but also identifying if they need to be, I don't know what the term that they use is, but essentially, can any other additional values be included or not? That can cause some issues as well if you have it locked down. Yep. So no other values can come in for that pick list, but you have data that has some other value.
Yes.
Issues with that.
Yeah, that's very good point. Because depending on how you defined your pick list field,
Yes.
you can allow people to load data that is not in the valid pick list choices. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, we have that because we have quite a few historical fields that, we don't use those values, but we haven't gone through and made that valid, but like deactivated even, so that in weird, odd situations, sometimes it pops up.
Yes, that's a very good call. Any other thoughts or questions on importing data? All right. So one of the things that we talked about in step one was making sure our data is clean. And so here's just a few of the ways that things that we can do as admins to help keep our Salesforce data clean. So probably the number one that most of us would think of is using validation roles to authenticate or validate whatever our users are entering. Using pick lists instead of an open text field allows us to control the values that are going into certain fields. And on lookup fields, using the filter. Let's say I'm on an opportunity, I want to create a lookup to an account record, but that account record lookup needs to only be to a partner account. So I would create a filter then on that lookup field that would limit which accounts could be linked to that new partner field. And then set up automation features to update data. So I've got a client right now who I've been working with extensively on building a lot of process builder solutions so that when one field changes, it updates other fields. That just ensures that data across that record stays accurate. Using formula fields was another one that was mentioned here, and then using record types and page layouts. So the idea with record types and page layouts is that if I'm creating as simple of a form for that specific user as needed, so I don't bombard Kevin with 1,000 fields on my account when all he ever works with is 10. So that's kind of the concept, I think, there. I wasn't sure where they were going on the formula field one, but as far as data cleanliness, unless they leverage that with validation rules, but I wasn't sure what they were doing there. So,
and for
I think I was just going to say, I think there they just mean to grab, like if you want data on a child from a parent, maybe. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So that a person doesn't have to actually fill in that field. It just can come straight from the parent.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
That's perfect. She stated one of the things I was going to say, which is that we use that a lot.
Yeah.
But so there's a couple different things that happen. So you can do that so that you don't have to also give security access maybe to another item, right? So that's one reason of having the formula fields, at least for ours. Okay. But then we also sometimes use formula fields of an editable field, like on a layout, so somebody that doesn't have access, can't inadvertently put bad data in.
Couldn't change it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's really just the visual of that data, but not the editable field.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so let's go through a handful of Q&As here. And so, Andy, and this is open, so I'm hoping that you guys will all unmute yourselves and share your responses. And we can kind of talk through any questions that you might have as we go through these. So Andy, a Universal Container sales rep, has been promoted to Vice President of Sales. He has 250 accounts, 35 open opportunities that need transferred to Matt. As the admin, how would you accomplish this task? Select one. So read through those and chime in with your thoughts. Okay, how many of you think it's A? No one? Or all of you are just being quiet?
Sorry, I'm still reading through. Don't want to, I know it's not D because Andy has not lost his job, so you don't want to deactivate him.
That's right, good. Yep.
I'll go ahead and take A, why not?
You like A? Okay.
Sure.
I'll go with A too.
I'm going to say C.
C? Yeah. All right, so, okay, for those of you who chose C, why not A?
Too much work? I don't know.
Too much work? Okay, there's also there's a key word here that is in A that would make it inaccurate.
Ooh,
Insert.
we don't insert, we would update.
Insert,
Oh.
yeah, insert.
There it was.
Yeah.
Duplicate all those
Yeah,
records
like
if you do that.
Terry, I'd like to tell you that I saw that word all along, and that's why I said that. However,
You were just testing me, weren't you? Yeah, so the answer there is C. So, why wouldn't you just do it? Why wouldn't you do B?
250 is way too many.
Well, I think there are other
Yeah.
pieces that also
Yeah.
tie in that you
Yeah.
might forget, and that
Yeah.
puts you in a bad situation for cleaning up those and missing
Yeah.
something.
So on that mass transfer record, well, I need to watch my time here. We're close on time. I'm about at my 20 minutes. So mass transfer record, you do have the option to do accounts and any custom object that's in the system. When you do the accounts, there are a variety of different options here that you can turn on and off to control which records get transferred. So the opportunities, we could transfer closed opportunities if we wanted to, but we want to leave that unchecked in this particular scenario. All right, next question. Marketing team has over 25,000 stale leads in Salesforce. They have an Excel spreadsheet with the IDs of all the records they'd like you to delete. What is the most efficient method to complete this? All right, how many think it's A? I didn't give you enough time to read that, but
I would use A.
By process of
I would
elimination.
say
A. Okay.
I think B sounds good, but I don't really know
Yeah.
the mass
Yeah,
delete
B.
option.
B isn't a bad choice, but it wouldn't be the most efficient one. And the reason for that is that we're dealing with 25,000 records. And there is a mass delete option, but that's going to, I think, have a limit of 250 per time that you push the button. So if it was a small number, that would have been a viable choice. But with the large number, using data loader to delete would be your quickest way to get it done. All right, good. Peter is a brand new sales rep. Before he is assigned his own accounts, his manager wants Jordan, a senior sales rep, to mentor him. Peter needs to be added as a team member to all of Jordan's opportunities. What is the most efficient way to accomplish this request? So this is a select one. Okay, how many of you think it's A, create a file with the fields needed to update the opportunity team member? Okay, would A work?
I'm pretty rusty on how the
think it's
teams work
designed
in
to-
Salesforce, how the opportunity teams work, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's designed to work
It-
that way. So.
I believe A would work.
Would it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would
It
be
would work.
insert opportunity
It's-
team members.
Yeah, this is the key,
Insert Jordan. Yep.
keyword then there that makes that wrong.
Okay.
But it would,
Yep.
other than that word, it would potentially work. Now, is it the most efficient way?
Nope.
No. Use the data import wizard. Any thoughts on that one? Can't do the opportunity team with the data import wizard.
Okay.
Okay, use the mass opportunity team reassign option in setup.
I've never used that.
Okay, and then the last one is use data loader to extract all the opportunity team members, add records for Peter, then update the load. Again, keyword here that would make that one wrong is update. So
you're
process
saying C.
and elimination gets us to C.
Okay.
Yes, and so this is another option that you have here, mass reassign opportunity teams. So that is a capability that we have in Salesforce.
I need to just study up on all of these math. I don't know. I've never used any of them.
Yeah, so just it's good to be aware that they're there, but it's also good to know what their limitations are as well. So Universal Containers is having trouble with keeping account data accurate. As their sole admin, what are some ways you can help? Select 3. How many of you like validation rules?
I do.
Okay, anybody else like A?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, set up page layouts based on user profiles.
Yes.
Well,
I
we
don't
use
know
that
what it
so
would
much.
do to account data. We don't change data, just how we look at it.
Okay, so we got some mixed answers there. Enable data accuracy rules.
Never use those.
Never used them because they never existed.
There we
So,
go.
watch for things like that when you take the exam, because that sounds really legitimate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not a thing. Provide training to users.
Yes, please.
And
Mm-hmm.
make all fields on the page layout required.
No.
Keyword there, all. So, yeah. So the reason page layouts based off of profiles is kind of what we talked about before, where it's helping with data accuracy, and that it's limiting what a person has to visually navigate through. And it also eliminates confusion with, well, what do I do with this field? Well, you do nothing with it. So so that's the concept there. All right. What is true about validation rules? Pick 3. So the first one, a rule must evaluate to false for the error message to appear. You agree with that?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. B, the regex function is used to require data formats.
Do not know that.
Anybody know the answer to that one?
I've used it on phone number validation, so I would assume yes.
Okay, good. Validation rules do not run when importing data.
That's not true.
That's not true. Okay, lots of validation rules improve user experience.
That's not true.
Yeah, how many of you love that one? Yeah, it's like, oh, it drives me nuts. Validation rules are case sensitive. Okay, so here's
the fact that that's the third one.
Yeah, and
yes.
yes, exactly. And you've eliminated 2 that you feel pretty confident in, and it has to be 3. So the answer to this is, it is true. It is case sensitive. You will not find that documented very many places.
Okay.
But when you're building out your formulas inside that, it is case sensitive.
Oh.
And I think this might be my last question. No, we've got 2 here. Sorry, I'm going to go quickly here. Universal Containers wants to import data from a legacy system. One of the requirements is the created date needs to reflect its original value. How can you meet this requirement? Select 1. So Salesforce controls the create date, and we can't change it, basically. We agree with that? B would be use an upsert to import the data and set create field that way. C is enable the set audit fields upon record creation prior to loading data. D is use data loader when inserting the records. E, ask Salesforce to complete the data load for you. Select one.
Either A or E, all right? I don't think that you can change create a date. I don't know if Salesforce will do that for you, but.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we do.
Okay.
So I was thinking that it was B, but
Okay.
I have no idea.
Any other ideas? Anybody else brave enough to take a guess?
I don't know if I should say anything.
All right. The answer is C.
There it is.
Yeah. Set the audit field upon record creation prior to loading the data. So that's in user interface, I believe is where that's at. And it is, I think I'm going to the right place. Tell me if I'm wrong, if you know where this is. I think it's here. There it is right here. Set audit fields upon record creation.
And
Now you cannot update that field once it's been inserted. You can only do it on insert only. Was it a question? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand that set audit field. What does that mean, really?
It means when you're importing your file, you can manually set the created date of the record. Instead of having it default to now, it lets you control it. All right, last question, and then we'll move on to the other two presentations. Universal Containers wants to load account data from its ERP system into Salesforce. The ERP is the system of record. Knowing that the data will need to be kept up to date, what design considerations should the admin take? Select 2. So where do we create a custom object to hold the ERP data? B, create an external ID field type to hold the ERP's unique record ID. C, create a custom text field on the account object and mark it as an external ID. D, create a custom lookup field to hold the ERP's record's unique ID. When loading the data, E, use the upsert to match against the external ID field.
I feel that it's B.
You feel that it's B? Okay. Any other thoughts? There's two correct ones here.
Oh.
I would say
Okay.
B.
C?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And the answer is there, just for sake of time, it's C and E. That external ID is a text field. It's an option when you're creating a text. So B is close, but again, watching that wording, there is no such thing as an external ID field type. It is a text field type with an external ID flag. And then you always have to use an upsert when you're matching against that external ID. I probably should have worded that field slightly different there, but anyway, that's good stuff. Those are the types of things that I believe they're going to be looking for on this particular section. So with that, I'm going to shut up, and we'll turn it over to, I forget, sorry.
It's me, Louis.
Louis, sorry.
No
I
problem.
get that wrong every time. All right, I think I stopped sharing, and so I think you're able to share and go.
Yeah, do you see my screen already?
Yeah, sorry, you are already
Okay.
ahead of me. Thank you.
Yeah, looking at on the table of the previous presentation and the next presentation, I think there will some things that I cover as well that you talked about already. I took some. I took the student guide that I had for the admin course 2 years ago because they had a whole chapter about managed data, and they had these little use cases in there that I'll just share. So one of the use cases was that Connor's coming to you and wants to import a list of leads from the last North American trade show. And there are different ways of doing that. One way would be the data import wizard that you can find in the setup. And you basically choose the object that you want to insert or update the leads to, and then choose what to do with the imported data, and then basically just drag your CSV file into there. So it's pretty straightforward. It's all within the Salesforce setup, so you don't need anything external for that. And then we're coming to the file that you would upload, and it would look something like this. Each row in the CSV import file corresponds to a record, and each column corresponds to a field. Yeah, that's nothing new to anybody here. Prepare the import file. Terry, you covered all of that in your presentation already. I don't know if I should go through that real quick, or should we just skip it and have it in the notes?
Looks like it's the same thing, so.
Yeah.
Good.
But at least we did our job right then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I did well.
Uh-huh.
All right, good. Or you did well too, so good.
Here's the point Alana brought to your presentation with the pick list values, that there are two different ones.
Strictly enforced, that's the word I was looking for.
Yep, that was that. I can skip that too, save us some time. Then maybe a sentence about the matching fields, how you can match your objects is, for example, in your account, you can match it to the Salesforce ID. But also in our environment, we have the SAP ID of the account, for example, that you could use for matching your import file. And you can see here the different matching types for the different objects that are possible. Another use case was basically just another update to your records. They wanted to have a new pick list values for regions and zones, and UCO updated the CSV file with that and wants us to upload that into Salesforce. And then Salesforce explains how you can match your IDs, either with a report where you pull the user ID, or with a data load where you extract the user ID, so you can match the new records that you're uploading. For this case, you could use the data loader. The data loader is another application that you have to download and install. And it looks like this little thing here in the picture. And the data loader is a client application. Yeah, just like I said, you must log into the data loader with your username and password. And if you're logging in from an IP address that is not in your org's trusted locations, a security token will be required. The data loader uses the Salesforce API, and this is a set of rules that allow outside programs to interface with your Salesforce data. The next slide I really like. It shows you when to use the import wizard and when to use the data loader. So if you want to import fewer than 50,000 records, that is the limit for the import wizard. So more than 50,000 records won't work with the import wizard. The import wizard does prevent duplicates when importing new records. And you can choose whether or not you want to trigger the workflow rules. The data loader, on the other side, you can load up to 5 million records at once. You can load objects such as products or opportunities, You can schedule your imports. You can save your mappings from the CSV file that you have to the field names in Salesforce, which is practical sometimes if you don't always have the right headers in your CSV file from wherever you get your files from. And you can also export or delete data with the data loader. There's some more advices for data imports. Also a lot that Terry covered already. Just reading through them real quick if there was anything that wasn't mentioned before. Yeah, I think that's all you said before, Terry. Another data tool that's out there is the mass transfer records, which Terry showed us real quick already too.
I'm sorry.
No problem. I mean, my presentation time is almost over, so that's all good. Yeah, I just skip that as well. Then there was another case that was coming. It's we're getting asked if there's a way to back up our data on a regular basis, and I think this is also part of a future presentation here, so I don't want to go too much into detail. It was kind of hard with this presentation because it says data tools and use cases, so I'm just showing you that. So there are different ways to back up your data. You can do it either with just simple reports within Salesforce. You can do your data load, which can be automated. So that's a little better than doing the reports, which were all manual. And then there's also a weekly data export service where you can obtain a complete set of Salesforce data for archiving, and that process is also automated.
And just a side note here, if you're not doing some form of backup of your system, you probably should look into this a little bit. You want to have your data somewhere other than just in Salesforce. And I know a lot of businesses have different ways of doing that through other tools, but regardless of how you do it, you should do it.
This weekly data export service, Terry, is that available for all the?
Yeah, that's an option in under setup, and I believe it's just called export data, I believe. Just a second. Yeah, data export is what it's called in your setup menu.
Okay.
So yes.
Another data to, oh, here's the data export service.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, you can schedule the data export, set your frequency, and you're good to go. One thing they point out here is that the zip files will be deleted after 48 hours, no matter if you have downloaded them or not. That's probably a good thing to point out. Then another data tool is the mass deletion of records. That allows you to delete standard object records that meet specific criteria. A list of all records to be deleted will display, and it gives you the opportunity to check the deletion for accuracy. The tool will alert you of any child records that would also be deleted. The best practice is to request or perform a backup before using the mass delete. And the deleted records are stored in the recycle bin for another 15 days unless you choose to permanently delete. And you can find that under Setup Data Management and under the Mass Delete Records.
And now we can see those recycle bin items in Lightning.
Yeah, that's right. Recycle bin is in Lightning. It's awesome.
That was everything that was in the module of data tools. I'm sure there are other third-party tools that you can use as well, but this is what comes directly from Salesforce. Yeah, I think that's all that you're going to need to know on is the ones provided by Salesforce. So definitely know what the capabilities are between those two products, the Import Wizard and the Data Loader, when you would use one versus the other.
I am confident you'll see questions along that line. Very good. Nice job. Anything else?
Thank you. That's it from my side. Are there any more questions I can try?
Any questions from anybody on that topic? If not, I'll let you stop sharing, and Tanner, you can take over. We do have Tanner, right? Oh, I don't see Tanner. Hang on. He may not be on the call.
Adam Kelly was going to run a video for him.
Oh, okay,
Adam,
that's right.
there?
Yeah,
That's right.
I have the presentation, so.
All right, cool. That's right. He recorded it ahead of time. Very good.
Get it pulled up here. And I apologize for the quality. It's got to play through the laptop speakers and the phone, so hopefully everyone can hear it.
Okay.
Watching the pot boil.
Yep. We can always, if it doesn't work, we can always put it in our folder, and everybody can have a chance to go out there and download it and listen to it as well. So
Just worked a little bit ago. I don't know why.
We'll give it another
right now.
little bit here.
Isn't that the way technology works?
Yeah.
It worked a minute ago.
Yeah. So this is on what, data validation. So to describe the capabilities and implications of data validation tools. So data validation tools, that's an interesting twist.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it, Tanner and I did. And he is covering validation rules and, well, I guess it might start here, data validation rules and dedupe rules, deduplication rules.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Dedupe rules, good.
Yeah.
Cool. I was just working on a project where I had to create custom dedupe roles or duplicate roles, and learned quite a bit about that when on that process. I was initially I thought it felt like the standard roles Salesforce were creating for us were that if I needed to do something different, I thought it felt like I couldn't replicate what they were doing, and I've learned that I can. And the other thing I learned that I didn't think I could do was compare. So I was loading lead data, and I needed to be able to compare that to accounts and contact data. And I thought, well, I didn't see a way to do that, and I figured that one out too. So it took me a little bit, but playing with it, I felt like I learned quite a bit about how that duplicate piece works. So I'm a little more comfortable there now.
So I can come and bug you then?
Yeah, for duplicates.
Okay.
Yeah, I still like the standard ones if you can get away with them. Why recreate the wheel?
Over the different data validation tools available in Salesforce.
There we go.
Okay.
Data hygiene is critical to a company's success with Salesforce. Poor data in Salesforce would be like putting Kool-Aid into your Ferrari. I would not recommend it. If your data management standards aren't up to par, then users won't trust the data in your Salesforce org. It's hard to make data-driven decisions based on reports and dashboards populated with dirty data. In this presentation, we'll discuss a few tools in Salesforce that will help you keep your data as clean as possible. Validation rules can be used to verify that the data a user enters in a record meets the standards you specify before the user can save the record. So a validation rule can contain a formula or expression that evaluates the data in one or more fields and returns a value of true or false. Validation rules also include an error message to display to the user when the rule returns a value of true due to an invalid value. To create a validation rule, you'll come out to Setup for Salesforce, and you'll go to your Object Manager because the validation rule is specific to an object. So I'm going to come out here to Contact, and to create a validation rule, you come down here down to Validation Rules, and create New up here. Here you'll name your rule, give a description of it, and then here's where you'll build out your expression or formula, your true statement. So if it's true, your statement, then that's when you'll get, your user will get an error message for that, stating what the error is on that field. And then you hit save, but I've already got one created here from the Trailhead. So I'll click on that. And this is a validation rule so that the contact must be in the account zip code. And here is my formula. So my first statement is if account name is not blank, so this only applies if there's an account on the contact, and the mailing postal code on the contact does not equal the account shipping postal code. If that whole statement is true, then it'll populate this error message, mailing postal code on contact does not match shipping postal code on contact. So let's go out and see how that looks. So I'll go up here to the Dickinson PLC account and scroll over down to the shipping address down here. So the zip code or postal code is 66045. So let's create a new contact. Danny Tanner. And let's leave the account blank for now. And let's go 123 Fake Street 52333. So there's my zip code that the validation rule is on. I'll hit save, and it created the contact Danny Tanner because I did not associate Danny Tanner with any account. So let's go ahead and edit this contact. And let's associate it with the Dickinson PLC account and try to hit save, and that's where my validation rule will kick in. Mailing postal code on contact does not match shipping postal code on account. So this does not match this. So let's try to put in 66045 and hit save, and allowed me to do that. So validation rules apply anytime you're saving. Like on this situation, we were saving a new one and then editing and trying to save it, and it kicked out that error. So that's how validation rules work. Here's another example of a validation rule. So what you see here validates that a custom field called other reason contains a value if a case has a reason of other. So you look at your formula. So I'm going to read this a little backwards. Is blank other reason. So if other reason is blank and the pick list value is selected as other, if that is a true statement, then this validation rule will kick out an error to the user to make them put something in the other reason field. Duplicate records such as accounts, contacts, or leads can cause a lot of troubles for users. One example of that trouble would be a duplicate lead is created, which then causes reps to inadvertently call leads owned by another rep. Seems pretty harmless, but these types of situations can escalate pretty quickly. So a consequence of this could be that a little turf war happens between two different lead owners, or this could be perceived by the lead, the person that's being called, as over-aggressive sales reps, which could then lead to a post on Google reviews or posts in social medias, hurting the company's overall image and future sales. Luckily, Salesforce is awesome and gives us admins the ability to create customized matching rules to deter or stop users from creating duplicate records. A matching rule defines how duplicate records are identified in duplicate rules and duplicate jobs. Salesforce does have standard matching rules available for accounts, contacts, and leads. You cannot edit these standard matching rules out there. Here's a link below to see what the standard matching rule logic is by the object. However, you do have the ability to customize your own matching rules to best fit your business needs. You simply input what fields need to match, either exactly or a fuzzy match, to determine whether a record already exists. You also have the ability to either allow users to create the record by bypassing the message or block the creation altogether. This functionality is available in the duplicate rule settings in Setup. A duplicate rule defines what happens when a user views a record with duplicates or starts creating a duplicate record. Salesforce also offers standard duplicate rules as well. Here's a link to that logic for those objects. But of course, you can also customize your own duplicate rules. You can customize what actions are allowed and whether they will receive an alert or be added to the duplication report, either while they're creating or editing a record in Salesforce. To create a matching rule, you'll come out to Setup and go to Matching Rules here, and you'll see the standard rules available for Salesforce. And you can click in there to get more information on those, but we're going to create our own custom rules. So you go to New Rule, select the object that you want the matching rule to apply to, contact. We'll put the rule name, just do custom matching rule, contact. And then here is where you'll create the logic to determine whether it's a match or not. So I'm going to use first name, and I'm not going to use an exact match. I'm going to use a fuzzy first name match. So if there's a Margaret Thatcher out there already and someone tries to create a Peggy Thatcher, it will catch it. So we'll keep that there. And then last name we'll do exact. And then also let's do email address exact. And over here, if the fields are left blank, you can tell it whether to match it if it's blank as well. So I'm going to save this for my matching rules. Come back out here to matching rules, and you'll see it right there. To actually start matching, you'll have to activate it here. It'll send me an email when it's all done. Okay, and then we'll go over to duplicate rules. Again, we have the standard rules available out there already. We're going to create a new rule on the contact. Contact duplicate rule.
I'm not hearing anything. Are we supposed to hear something?
He's whispering to himself.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe he
Adam?
didn't edit it correctly or what.
Okay. You can't hear it either?
No, I can't hear anything either, so.
Okay. All right.
Last portion.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what
We
he's
only have a couple
attempting
minutes
to
left anyway.
Yeah, what he's attempting to show on that screen is the creation of the rule, which the rule is the options there in the center of the screen is where you're going to choose the matching rule that applies and how you're going to either allow or not allow the creation of those records. So that is your.
So you create the rule, but then you have to explain what outcome you want from that.
You create the matching rule, which defines what a duplicate is, and then the duplicate rule defines what you're going to do about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can have multiple.
Yeah.
Your duplicate rule can have multiple matching rules tied to it, and each rule then can be handled differently. You're
Yeah, I think a good. Yeah, I was just saying a good concept on that for a test question could be you have to have your matching rule completed first. They might say, some sort of wording about, you create your matching rule first, and then your duplicate rule would be one answer, and then another answer could be create your duplicate rule first, and then your matching rule. So just knowing the order of operations and just in this use case. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and remembering that you have to activate both in order for them
Yeah,
to.
very good point. Yeah.
All right, so let me share my screen again, and we will look at our assignments for next week. And our November 6th, these are our assignments. So we're continuing with the data management, specifically looking at data backups. Zach, I think you're on the call. You've got analytics for reporting options, so describe options available when creating and customizing a report, report types, all of that stuff. And then I will look at, again, the sharing model and the impact that has on dashboards and reports. So I think with that, we will call this meeting good, and we landed right at 1 o'clock. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Terry.
Yep.